There is a particular kind of confusion that visits people who have no obvious reason to be confused. Life is arranged. The pieces are in their proper places. Work proceeds. Relationships hold. The basic architecture of a good life stands intact, and yet something beneath all of it shifts, restless, unnamed, like a current moving in a direction opposite to the surface. I have watched this for a long time, and I can tell you that this feeling is not a malfunction. It is, in fact, one of the more honest things a person can experience. The ancient question is not why people suffer when things go wrong. That part is straightforward. The more interesting question, the one that reveals something true about how human beings are built, is why they suffer when things go right. You built towards something, maybe for years, a version of your life that looked like safety, like arrival, and when it finally came, there was a brief moment of satisfaction. Then something quieter moved in, a vague hollowness, not grief exactly, not depression exactly, something more like standing in a room you decorated yourself and not recognizing your own taste. The mind was trained on the journey, on the problem to solve, on the gap between where you were and where you wanted to be. That gap gave the days their texture, it gave effort its meaning. When the gap closed, something essential went quiet, and the silence left behind was not peaceful, it was disorienting. Here is what I have noticed. Human beings are extraordinarily skilled at adapting. What once felt extraordinary becomes ordinary with time. The promotion you worked 3 years toward becomes just your job by the 4th month. The relationship you were grateful for becomes the baseline of your daily life. This is not ingratitude. This is simply what minds do. They calibrate, they normalize, they move the center line. So when you ask yourself why you feel lost even when life is going well, part of the answer lives here. You adapted. The things that once gave you direction no longer pull you forward because you have arrived at them. And now you are standing still in a life built for moving. But there is another layer, quieter and perhaps more important. When you spend a long time working toward external markers, you develop a habit of locating yourself in relation to them. Your sense of who you are gets tied to what you are building, and when the building stops or slows, a question surfaces that external progress never had to answer. Who are you when nothing is required of you? Not what you do, not what you have achieved. Who are you when the striving pauses? Most people have not been asked that question in a long time. The noise of ambition keeps it at a distance, and so when conditions finally settle, the question arrives quietly, and it feels enormous. This is not a crisis. I want to be clear about that. It is a threshold. It is the moment life asks you to shift from building outward to knowing inward, from constructing a life to inhabiting one. It is an uncomfortable transition because nothing in the external world signals that it is happening. On paper, everything looks fine. In the body, in the quiet parts of the mind, something is opening up that the surface cannot account for. Many people carry a version of themselves shaped by difficulty. They learned who they were through hardship, through the fight, through proving something. That identity has weight to it. It has a kind of clarity. Struggle at least knows what it wants. It wants to end. When the struggle ends, the identity that was shaped by it must also change. That is a subtle loss, and it is rarely acknowledged. You do not mourn the hard time exactly. You mourn the self that knew how to move through it, the self that had a clear relationship with its own life. Now that relationship is less defined, and the undefined tends to feel like emptiness, even when it is actually possibility. The feeling of being lost in a good life is often the feeling of a self in transition, waiting to learn who it becomes next, not who it was during the climb, not who it was before the difficulty, someone new, shaped by everything that came before, but not imprisoned by it. This is not a problem to be solved quickly. This is a season, not a pleasant one necessarily. but a meaningful one. The kind that does not announce its purpose while it is happening, but reveals it slowly in the texture of ordinary days. What I would suggest, quietly and without urgency, is this. When the feeling arrives, do not immediately try to fill it. Do not reach for the next goal as a way of restoring the comfortable sensation of chasing. That will work temporarily, but the question will wait. It is patient. It will return. Instead, sit with the unfamiliarity for a while, not indefinitely, not dramatically, just long enough to hear what it is actually asking. Beneath the discomfort of feeling lost in a good life, there is usually something genuine trying to surface, a value that got buried under productivity, a version of yourself that your ambition never had time to meet, a kind of living that looks less like achievement and more like presence. The life that is going well on the outside is not betraying you by leaving you unsettled. It is simply making enough room for the unsettled parts to finally speak. You have built a life that is stable enough to ask real questions in. That is not nothing. That is, in its own quiet way, exactly what you were working toward. Even if you did not know it, the lost feeling is not a sign that something went wrong. It is a sign that something is ready to begin. Stay with it a little longer, not because the answer will arrive on a schedule, but because the willingness to stay is itself a form of knowing yourself. And knowing yourself, unhurried, without performance, is the work the good life was always making space for.